All right, it's time for us to get to planting. But first, everybody give us a thumbs up on the video. We really appreciate that. And if you're not already subscribed, we appreciate that even more. But with that said, let's get after it. Good morning. Give you a quick rundown of what we're planning on getting accomplished today and having this video. Primarily wanting to get our summer annual mix planted. Our sorghum, sudan grass, and sun hemp mix. We're trying to get it planted. I guess before we actually plant it, we are going to spray the ground where we're doing this, brick on the ground, burn it down. We are no-tilling that mix in, so we need to do that to control the existing vegetation. But that's what we're hoping to get accomplished today. If you've watched these videos before, you know those plans are very much subject to change. But that's the idea. Early this morning, it's just now 6 o'clock, headed to pick up the grain drill that we're going to use. We have, I guess, reserved one from our local NRCS office that we're renting to do this with. They have a variety of equipment there available. I actually have a 10 and a 15 foot drill. We're just using the 10 today because the gate, I guess the gate and the bridge crossing the creek. For those of you watching that are wondering what in the world is the NRCS, which if you're not familiar with the world of agriculture, we've never seen an acronym we didn't like. It's of course USDA, most people are quite familiar, United States Department of Agriculture. NRCS is Natural Resources Conservation Service. I believe I got that right. But it's our county office. They do have equipment available. We can rent. It's pretty neat. Very reasonable. Certainly for smaller farmers like ourselves, much more reasonable than they're going out and buying this equipment to only use it maybe once or twice a year. Those cows look funny. A little odd. A little off subject here. But my biggest complaint about this tractor, Kubota M135, these dadgum cup holders. Like it's not deep enough. The bottom's not big enough to hold the Yeti coffee cup, and so this thing, I mean, you can see I've spilt more coffee this morning than I've actually consumed. But off subjects, little rant on cup holders in a Kubota. Kubota, fix this. All right, so I made it back home with the drill. Everything looks to be pretty good shape on a kind of initial real quick overview of it. No doubt we're gonna need to make a few adjustments to it and kind of figure that thing out. But first, we need to hook up the sprayer and get that job ready to go, because we're gonna do that first. And I'm actually gonna use the other tractor, my brother's tractor. It's been sitting for a while. Hope the battery's not dead, but it needs to be run anyway, and that way we don't have to unhook the drill, hook on the sprayer, and then hook back up. But get that tractor, get started, get that hooked up, and start getting ready to do some spraying. Those wean calves that we worked in our last video, still have them up here in the barn lot. They still got just a little hay over there. That's one of our other list of things to do this weekend, is get them moved to pasture. We're gonna put the steers with our stockers and just up the road, and the heifers will keep pasture here, but just of course separate from their mamas. But see if this thing will start. And so battery is dead. So of course. So we're gonna need to boost this thing off. And now that I sit here and think about it, my wife and kids out of town with the F250 and the booster cables are in it, of course, in the toolbox. So I have to run to town anyway, pick up a few little things, odds and ends. Probably a good time to grab another set of booster cables. But that was a little bit anticipated. This tractor's been sitting for a while. I think my dad did crank it about a month ago. He said it didn't really want to start that day, and today it is not going to start at all, but should be able to get it boosted off and get rolling. It's pretty easy to tell when we've been picking up beef from the processor. Have coolers stacked everywhere, including a couple over there. So I picked up a couple of steers we had processed just a couple days ago. Picked them up a couple days ago. So got one more feeder to go, but get these coolers unloaded and get into town. All right, got the tractor boosted off. One more little problem corrected. Gonna go get that sprayer hooked up and hope to actually get rolling doing something shortly. All right, so it's about 11:30 and we're finally getting something done. Just now making the first round with the sprayer. Spent half a day going and picking up equipment, getting things hooked up, making minor repairs, going to get seed, you know, and as well as taking care of a few just daily chores. But well, it's easy to see why I was worried that what at first seemed like a simple, you know, spray and plant 20 acres may not be quite as simple and easy to get done in one day as we thought. No major problems, thankfully, so far. Had a dead battery on this tractor, had it boosted off. Had a low tire on the sprayer. Of course, got more air to it, not a big deal. But then the tractor wanted to do a part regeneration on the diesel particulate filter, so that takes about 15 minutes. Okay, so again, what we're spraying is glyphosate, so just a generic Roundup. You know, most people are more familiar with that name, and a crop oil. And so just, you know, burning this down, killing everything that's green out here right now. And you know, when you look at, you know, or you think about we're just grazing this ground, you know, why not just let them eat what's growing out here? Just let it proliferate. I think that is a good question, but I guess the vegetation you primarily see right now is that yellow buttercup, which is a weed, which is, they won't eat it really anyway. And then the clover, that Balanza clover, which both of those are actually just about done. The buttercup, you know, it's a cool season weed. It's pretty much done what it's going to do. It's not going to be a problem moving forward. The clover is beneficial, but it has kind of done what it is going to do as well, being a cool season legume. But what you really got to get out close and look and see is there's a lot of warm season grasses that are not very desirable, not as palatable, not as good a forage as what we're about to plant. So really that's what we're wanting to knock back and control with this, and get that sudex and sunn hemp planted, being the desirable forage we want. But a lot of goose grass, barnyard grass, and things like that that are just going to naturally, you know, pop up out here and just, again, not really good forage quality to those, not as good as what we're planting. So that's the whole reason for doing this. If we tried to plant this in here without terminating what's existing, it already being 4 or 6 inches tall in some places, it's got way too much of a head start. It would outcompete sudex, and we'd never get a stand. All right, and just to talk about the sprayer a little bit, because I don't guess we've ever done a video with it, not that I know of, not with this sprayer anyway. And so maybe one of the first things you notice about it is that it is boomless. It just has a single tip right there in the middle. Doesn't have the booms or the arms that would fold out, you know, the tips that spray downwards like you see, and more like the big ag, you know, application. type machinery. And it's nice for, especially pastures, smaller fields, having to go through gates constantly or in and out of narrow places. It just has that single tip that sprays 180 degrees. And I guess, the disadvantage of it would be it's probably not, or it's definitely not quite as precise or as accurate as, a boom sprayer may be. But, for the applications, for the chemicals we're putting out, for the relatively small number of acres we're getting over, it's not like we're spending tens of thousands of dollars on chemical a year, where we, need to be down to within, that exact ounce per acre in these applications. Essentially, we use it for this burn down. We'll also spray like a 2,4-D grazing type product on some of our perennial pastures where we're having broadleaf control problems. So really nice. My dad just bought this one last year, so we've only used it a few times. First time I have used it. All right, so we've gotten one tank sprayed out, filling up for the second time. Gonna get this last bit sprayed, the other half at the bottom, and then be ready to maybe start planting today. I really don't know if we're gonna even get to planting today because it's already nearly 2:30. But we did have a very productive afternoon though. We just sold some heifers. The 8 heifers that we had moved up here, I guess we had moved 10. We had already decided to keep a couple of them. The other 8, there were 4 Herefords. Gentlemen called me this morning, wanted to come look at them, wanted the 4 Herefords, so sold them. So it's been a productive day if we don't get anything else accomplished. So I like those heifers, like all of them. I always like them all. But we needed to, we needed a little cash flow. All right, so we've gotten started planting, I should say. Made a few passes, checking things. Had one tube that was stopped up. I believe it was this one right here. And basically, that was our problem. I don't know if how well you can tell, but it's a bunch of little tiny seed from one of the previous users of the drill. Drill wasn't cleaned out. There was still some seed in it, both just a very little bit in the seed box, I'm sure obviously in the tubes. One of those tubes apparently had a little moisture that was able to get into it. It sprouted, and I pulled probably 5 or 6 times that much out of there. I believe it's unplugged now, but as a common courtesy, if you ever do rent one of these drills from, or really anywhere, be a good neighbor and clean it out when you're done. We'll certainly make sure of doing that. We kind of learned that lesson, but again, if that's the biggest problem we run into with it, we're going to be in good shape. But we're going to plant this little 4-acre block. It's getting late now. We can run until dark, maybe even a little after. But plant this 4-acre block out. Make sure our rate is coming out about like we want it. All right, so we're going to call it a day. It's a little bit after 8:30. We've been at it for a solid 15, going on 16 hours. Got about half of it planted. Of course, got everything sprayed. We're about halfway done with the plant, and I think everything's coming out like it should with the planter. Actually, it was one of the things I need to check. So, we should knock out this last, and maybe about 10 or 12 acres left to plant pretty quickly tomorrow, barring always, the disclaimer, barring a significant breakdown. But had a good day, got a lot done. I kind of thought we might get it all done today, but not a big deal. We're gonna hit it again tomorrow. All right, another good morning. And before we get back on the planter, get started, or get finished planting that Sudex mix, doing our chores, checking on these stocker calves. See, they're all looking really pretty good. They got plenty to eat out here, as you can see. With the grass, we brought them a little feed. It's kind of starting to get to that point in the year where it's getting hot. You know, where they might not gain quite as well as they do, you know, earlier in the spring, and then pick back up again in the fall when they really get going. But just worry, on these real hot days, they spend a lot of time lounging around in the shade. But they're looking good. We're gonna try to get a head count here and then go get on the tractor. All right, so I got the planter. I won't say filled up, it's not quite full, but got it loaded, let's say it that way. The last time, let me get a tag off one of these bags. I'll show you a little more specifically what we're planting. So, it'll focus there. Yeah, sorghum, sudan grass, sunn hemp is the mix. Southeast Agri Seeds. Company actually out of Georgia, so not really nearby for us, but they've been really great to work with. They focus really just on forage type products primarily, so we rely on their expertise and some of these recommendations and getting ideas as far as what to try next. All right, so talk a little bit about more specifically what we're planting. Those of you that aren't familiar, so it's sorghum sudan grass, so it's a hybrid between those two. Sudex, as a lot of people will refer to it, but it is a warm season or a summer annual, so it has to be planted each year. It needs soil temperatures, I believe, above 65 degrees, ideally at least above 60 anyway, you know, to germinate and grow. And we're well above that. I think the last 7 days our average is like right around 70 degrees or so. So this stuff should pop right on up. But makes a lot of forage, grows very quickly. This particular variety that we have planted, I believe it's SS275 from Southeast Agri Seeds. It is sugarcane aphid resistant. To be honest with you, I don't know if we have a sugarcane aphid problem here or not, but it does have that benefit. It's a little lower digestibility than some of the other sorghum sudan grass hybrids, from what I understand. Higher fiber content, but it has some other benefits just in terms of the biomass it produces. And this is for just our cow herd that will be on this later this summer. So maintaining mature cows versus, say, our growing stocker calves, that, you know, slightly lower digestibility is acceptable. Then of course, we're also planting sunn hemp, so a legume, something I'm actually even less familiar with, feel less qualified to discuss in any great detail than the sorghum sudan grass, but it's a summer annual or warm season annual legume, which is nice because you don't have a lot of legumes, I guess, that are suited for the summer. Or annuals. I guess peas would be the other big one, but add some nitrogen to the ground. You know, a little more diversity there than just a straight grass. So, and really the reason we went to this planter, I think I said it earlier, or this drill versus that no-till seeder we used last year. So I'm hoping to get a better stand with the sunn hemp. Had a really good stand of the sorghum sudan grass last year, not so much on the sunn hemp. So decided to go back to the exact same varieties, but with a little different planting technique. And some of you out there may be familiar with you know, sudan grass or sorghum sudan grass, any of those summer annuals, and you think about some of the toxicity concerns that it can create for cattle, and there are some specifically with nitrate accumulation. A lot of people call it cyanide poisoning. I believe it's actually prussic acid. But the few ways to avoid that, and if you know what you're doing, you're watching closely, you rotate pastures when you need to. It's not a huge risk, but if the plants get really drought stressed, they can accumulate those nitrates, and then right after a frost, it can accumulate nitrates. Of course, if you fertilize heavily with nitrogen, that increases that risk too, especially then if you do get drought stress or frost. Frost really won't come into a play for us because we're probably going to terminate this relatively early in the fall to get our perennial mix seeded in here, the fescue and orange grass clover we're planning on planting. We'll have to hope we don't get drought stress, but I believe what you can do if you do get into a frost situation is, and there's a rule of thumb how many days you need to move the animals off of it. Let the nitrate level in the plant decrease, but it is avoidable. It's not incredibly hard to do. Fortunately on this farm we have 4 different pastures cross-fenced. 2 of them, about half of it is going to have this mix. If we get into a situation where we need to get them off of it, we can do that and leave them off of it for a little while. But just to talk a little about that, I knew you weren't going to get out of this video without me talking some specifics about the forages. I just, I enjoy messing with them. I say I enjoy messing, I just enjoy the experimentation. Kind of the whole idea of variety is the spice of life, trying different things, seeing how it works. And as we say that this is going to be the last hoorah with the summer annuals. That's not set in stone, but we feel pretty confident about that. Not that they don't do that well. We've had more trouble really with the winter annuals that we try to double crop, not doing as well. It's probably the biggest reason for it. But we had to kind of give you a rundown of what we have tried over the years. The very first one we planted was teff, a grass that I had never heard of, probably a month or 2 before we planted it. But it actually did really well. You have to have a really firm seed bed, but we broadcast it in after we had tilled this ground, cultipacked it, made it firm. Actually took the first cutting off of it for hay, and then grazed it after that. Then it tried millet the next year. Millet, and it may have been actually cowpeas in there. We did have a legume, and I had a total failure on it. Didn't get a stand at all. I had too much competition from our other summer annual grasses, weeds essentially. And then last year we went to the sorghum grass, then did it again. So I guess this is our 4th go around with the summer annuals. And again, I mentioned we are just going to graze this. We're not going to cut it for hay. A lot of people do. I think the biggest challenge is it's really tough to get it dry, to make dry hay with it. So a lot of people recommend putting it up as baleage or haylage, wrapping it or baling it wet. We don't have any of that type of equipment. We do all dry hay, and there's really no custom harvest people around here that are doing that kind of thing. So something neat. I would definitely be interested in trying maybe sometime if we ever had that type of machinery available to us, or someone in our area that was interested in doing custom harvesting. All right, so planning for the summer annuals 2021 is over. Got the drill off the tractor, hooked up the truck. Got it secured upward so we can transport it with the truck this time. I have to take the tractor back up there, make that trip just a little faster. But appreciate you watching. If you're still watching at this point, again, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, we appreciate that. Fire away with any questions. We're pretty quick to respond. You know, whatever question you may have, or comment, suggestion. But again, we appreciate you watching. I think we might have a little surprise in the next video, a little toy on the way for us of sorts. But we don't get much new equipment around here, but might be something like that in store. But anyway, we hope you come back. We appreciate you watching. Eat beef and God bless.